On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
The one other thing I do want to touch on about the business is working with your wife and being together all day. Do you guys ever need a point where when you go home, you're like, listen, I'm going to eat dinner over here, you eat dinner over there? Or are you guys just so in sync that, like, to be honest, people get like kind of annoyed with my wife and I because we're like genuinely best friends. We spend all the time in the world together and we're never tired of each other. And it's really awesome to have somebody like that in life. I'm just curious which side you guys are on, and neither one is right or wrong, right? Like, sometimes you're lucky you're with the right person, and sometimes you need a break.
I mean, I've probably met over 1,000 people that are married in my life or more, right? And everybody's marriage looks different, and a lot of people are happy. So, I would say that we're probably a little bit more on your end of things of like, yeah, my wife is my best friend. Like, my buddies and I joked in college about how we would only marry people that could be closer friends than we were with each other. And my college teammates and buddies, like we're like friends closer than brothers. Like we are super tight. And yeah, Emily and I are, I mean, there's no one else I would do this with, not even close. So we do spend a lot of time together. I kind of mentioned earlier, I handle more the front end of the business. I do a lot of like the conversations with parents. I handle all the lead intake, kind of the movement assessment. I talk to parents when they come in, and then like a lot of the coaching, a lot of the kind of like, I'm kind of the authoritative presence in the room, kind of like running the ship. She's the back end. She handles all of the bookkeeping, payment invoice, like making sure things are going out correctly. It's actually funny. I got my MBA while I was doing my GA in South Dakota. So I do have a business degree, which is kind of ironic that this all came about, which has helped. I mean, there's some things I learned, but I feel like she's a lot more of the business administrator than I am. And I definitely like, I take the mornings, and then she'll come and help coach in the afternoon, evenings. And I guess the way that we do get our gaps is like, I'm pretty like regimented throughout the day. I'll coach the first group. We'll wrap up there. Then I eat my breakfast. I kind of knock out a couple of things that came through overnight real quick, and then I train. And then I start knocking out my to-do list for work, and then I start, if I have to handle calls from parents. But a lot of times she'll come in later in the day in general, and she likes to kind of have her slow morning. She'll always, it's the classic. I know when she's up because I'm getting all the Instagram reels sent to me as she's seeing funny.
100%.
Yeah. So, but she's, usually knocking out business stuff in the morning from home. And then, so that's kind of where I think like the first half of the day is where we kind of get our own time, but we're working towards the same mission, which is great. It's like, we're working towards the same thing, even though we're kind of doing it in our own way. But yeah, then like at night we hang out. I mean, we spend all the time together. It's really interesting too. Like, match made in heaven, like everything that I really have an opinion on and I care about strongly in the business, she does not care about at all. And vice versa. If there's an opinion that she has that she's like, this is how it needs to be, I'm like, great, because I don't care. Perfect. You make that decision. I do think the hardest thing is that owning in a business is that we face a lot of decision fatigue. We're constantly making decisions all the time. And also we're making a lot of decisions with kids. So that can kind of sometimes wear on us. So sometimes the like, what do you want for supper conversation? Like, I'm tired of making decisions. Can you just pick something that, there's things like that. But man, once again, like if that's our biggest problem, I think we're living a pretty good life. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think it's also a big blessing too, of like, we're young enough to where we're still pretty relatable to high school kids, and they get to witness our marriage, like they get to witness how we treat each other and how we work together, next to each other. And I think a lot of times in this day and age, that's not always the case with parents and their or kids and their parents, because mom and dad are in different places working. They do have some interactions, but even for mentors, like they don't always get to see the mentor's other half all the time. So I think that that's kind of a cool opportunity that we've been given, and definitely like an accountability that we hold to, of like, we are, mentoring a lot of young people, and they're very impressionable. So
Yeah, serving a higher purpose, but I think that probably makes it that much better, just to kind of see those kids grow up and go on to college and things like that. So, what do you believe makes a strength and conditioning coach successful? And then does that differ in the pro sports setting versus running your own business?
I don't think there's a lot of difference between the two. I think honestly, just being like a really consistent person matters the most. I think if you want to be in this industry, you have to be invested in other people. This is a service industry. We're here to serve. You need to be humble and willing to learn. There's all sorts of different avenues within the field of strength conditioning that we are constantly learning more and more about. I mean, we've also commented on how our training for ourselves has changed since the last time we talked, in a good way. And with that, being a business owner, the amount of things that I've learned about tax code and accounting, and also knowing, like, being humble enough to, like, this is something I can't handle. I need to go seek a professional. But when I seek that professional, I need to learn from them too. I can't just rely on them to do everything. I trust them to do their job. I paid them, but like, there's wisdom for me to be had in this situation too. I think that's really valuable. And kind of with that willingness to learn, like, I think this is just kind of like something I've said a lot really since we've opened. Kurt Hester, he's at Houston now, I think, a football strength coach. He wrote a book a while back called The Rants of a Strength and Conditioning Madman. And there's a page in there here he talks about how only wussies grind, and about how if you view everything as a grind, then you're going to be negative and you're going to grind yourself into the dirt. And he talks about just preparing for the fight. I've kind of recoined that as it takes what it takes. Like, if you're like, you need to work hard at what you're doing, and a lot of times it's going to be exhausting, but if you're fatigued, you need to rest. But also, don't be afraid of the work. Understand that in order to accomplish what you want to accomplish in terms of like getting your athletes better, growing as a strength coach, developing a business, whatever it is, it takes what it takes. Like, the work takes what it takes for you, and to not be afraid of that, and to not be intimidated by it. I think the best strength coaches that I know are incredibly adaptable, and yeah, they kind of just have that. Well, it's got to be done. Takes what it takes. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do that within my bandwidth of what I'm capable of doing. And it might stress me out, but I'm going to try to manage that stress and understand that it takes what it takes.
Yeah, I love that. My wife, not to cut you off, my wife is like writing a book, and it's finally like this passion of hers is coming out, and she's like staying up late and like getting up early and like investing in weekend time. And I literally told her the other day, I was like, this is how I feel about strength and conditioning. Like, my passion happens to be the job I have, and like this is why sometimes I was not grinding, but I was at the field all day, because it takes what it takes to be successful. And now you're getting a taste of that. And she's like, oh, I get it. She's like, I wouldn't pick your job to do what it takes, but I understand now. So that one in particular resonates with me. Sorry to cut you off, but it really, really just makes sense for strength coaches and business owners, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's a conversation we have a lot with our kids, especially when they make that jump to like college or pro athletics. Like, hey, it takes what it takes. Like, it's a job. Like, you have to be invested in it. And if you've done things right on the front side of it, it's not going to be as scary. So just understanding that time management piece is important for them. And then lastly, in terms of being a great strength coach, I think one thing that I thought was I didn't quite understand as much my first year in pro ball, but as time went on, and then even more now, I think is super important and very underrated for strength coaches, is knowing functional anatomy very well. Knowing where things are in the body, how they connect and how they work is so important in terms of like troubleshooting where pain could be coming from, if there's issues up and down myofascial lines, being able to communicate better with athletic trainers and physical therapists, orthos, all those things. I think that is probably, like, in terms of just like a hard tool in strength conditioning, that like I've pillared up on that I pull out every day is knowing functional anatomy. You don't need to be able to recite it in the Latin. And you don't need to be able to, articulate all the exact words of this, this fossa and this tuberosity, but, knowing exactly where the patellar tendon inserts and knowing where the scapula is supposed to sit on the rib cage, knowing the different points of where the rotator cuff connect, like that is so helpful. And it seems like a detail, but at the same, like that seems like such a small detail. That's important. Simple things done well, details matter. I think that can really be a big separator for a lot of coaches once they really start to understand how it impacts everything they do.
How about advice for others, either those who want to follow the path that you did in a pro sport, or that they want to follow the path that you followed to business, or just anybody that's listening that I think could take something from you?
Yeah. I got a couple. I think any experience you've previously obtained in your life in any capacity is only wasted if you choose to waste it. So whatever job you've had previously, like obviously, like I worked in a grocery store in high school. I roofed houses in high school. I don't have that on my resume anymore, but I worked customer service at a grocery store in high school and into college, and that drastically helped my ability to talk to parents. And if there's ever a situation that comes up, like I've had to deal with things that were not my fault being my fault, and I can handle that interaction really well. I growing up on a farm in Nebraska, the amount of just handyman, odd job, fix this, fix that I learned with my dad, the amount of times that I've had electrical issues in our building that I've been able to troubleshoot because of that. I've built all of the wood storage and furniture in our facility. It's only wasted if you choose to waste it. So there's always different things that you can grow in that are going to be able to help you out in any capacity. And then I also think that relationships that you build are way more important than trying to network. I think networking can be something that people kind of get lost in. I think building deep relationships with people that share your core values goes way further than just everyone knowing your name. I think that's, honestly, that's something I would tell my younger self is, if you don't want this person on your resume, it doesn't mean don't waste time in being respectful to them, but it probably means you probably need to invest somewhere else with someone that you would want on your resume in terms of who they are as a person. I think that's super valuable. And then more specifically, like in business and small business, especially, I feel like the small business world is kind of like the Wild West. Like it feels like obviously like we have laws and things in terms of like how businesses are supposed to run and where taxes are supposed to go, but just in like interactions with people, like I've had a lot of interactions with people that have been very interesting in terms of like negotiating leases, working to have different services paid for, working with lawyers. There's so many different ways to kind of like tweak things. And it can be kind of frightening about like being taken advantage of. Like we've made a lot of mistakes as business owners early on. But also all those mistakes were pretty small in comparison to how bad they could have been. And those lessons learned have really helped help us lock in on how we want to do business, how we want to conduct ourselves in the Wild West. And it also kind of makes it fun because it's like if you're in a pro ball system, and you have an issue with a player, there's like a chain that you have to go through to communicate how you want to fix this problem. In the small business world, if you have any sort of issue, there's a million different ways you can solve that problem. And it's kind of fun to like feel like you have a little bit more things at your disposal. And that's also where you can lean on the relationships that you've built with people that share your values to kind of help you find those solutions. So building relationships with allies that share your values is way more valuable than trying to go about a cookie cutter approach sometimes. And also, we've definitely experienced that the relationships that we've built in business owning specifically, like there's a lot of business owners that we talk to that don't do anything that's what we do, but there's different resources in terms of like accounting. If you need a lawyer, bringing on employees, every business has employees to some kind of extent. So you can learn a lot from other people. All those relationships that we found have been naturally mutually beneficial. Like I've never felt like I was giving advice to somebody else who didn't have my best interest in mind and couldn't return the favor. And it's like, it was kind of an afterthought of like, oh yeah, like we're both helping each other naturally. And it's just a good relationship. So.
The Wild West thing is really funny to me. I just picture like constant negotiations, and then like the guy, like somebody is gonna go back and be like, damn, I could have taken that guy for even less money, or like,
Yeah,
that guy really played his hand today, or oh, I got the best of him, and like, oh, I got this great deal, and then your wife is like, we could have got that for even cheaper, dude, and you're like, like, my bad. This is why you do these things. Like, I have no idea how any of that works. And I feel like a lot of strength coaches are probably in the same boat, right? Like you said, you have an MBA, but you didn't really know how business stuff works. And so I think giving yourself some grace to make mistakes and understand like that it is a process, you are going to learn and, kind of progress from there. Again, as long as you said, like you said, if you take your experience and learn from it, it's not wasted. And I'm sure it was probably nerve-wracking for you knowing that you spent like your last dollar to invest in this business and like your side hustling along the way. Like you still probably have to take a step back and give yourself some grace and be like, listen, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm trying my best. I'm learning from everybody I can, but I'm not the professional at this. Like I will learn as I go, but also like, shit, I just lost out on $100 that I really didn't have to lose out on, you know what I mean? So I would imagine that a lot of people that are listening who are strength coaches probably feel the same way, because a lot of us we don't get classes in financial literacy or business or how to do taxes or any of that stuff. It's all just from conversations like this, right? So it's an interesting thing to think about. Just, oh yeah, I'm just going to open my own business, and it's like, oh wait, I don't know how to do any of this.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's exactly where I was, man. That's exactly how I felt in every single way. It was like, I have zero clue what I'm doing. Man, this is kind of terrifying. But that's I think one of the strengths that I've always had is the ability to just have conversations with people. And talking to the right people has definitely kind of pushed the needle in terms of like what to learn when. And then also like if in terms of strength and conditioning, like I think in terms of business, one of the most helpful things, if you're like just looking for some financial like literacy skills, one of the best books I ever read was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I have to look up who wrote that, but it's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it's just like a story of this guy about how he learned how money works. And I grew up in a situation where money was tight growing up. I didn't have a lot of disposable income in our family. I worked through high school. I worked through college, paid my way for a lot of things. But I kind of viewed money as like I work for my money. But the idea is like you need to learn how to make your money work for you. You probably heard that before. But he just lays out some very simple examples that are very understandable of like, no, instead of thinking about it this way, think about it this way. And that was super helpful and kind of like understanding that. And also like some of the mistakes that we made early on, they felt painful in the moment. In the grand scheme of things, they could have been a lot worse. So it was kind of like God gave us a little bit of a safety net of like, hey, I allowed you to fail in this safe way. Like you felt the sensation of the fall, but like I caught you, you'll be all right. But also like it was scary enough. So like I felt it, it hurt enough of like, dang, I'm not making that mistake again. No way. I learned my lesson. So it's like you touch the hot stove and you burn your finger, you ain't touching the hot stove again. Yeah.
You hope not.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're like, I think it was really hot last time. It won't be this hot this time. You're like, nope, still hot. Here we go.
Yep.
You're talking about a valuable book. Are there any other books you would recommend? Any seminars to attend, podcasts to listen to? Just any continuing education resources.
Yeah. So with the books, kind of going back to something else we talked about earlier, hiring coaches. There's this book called The Road Back to You. It's about the Enneagram. It's a personality typing book. That was like one of the most helpful. That's actually kind of crazy. It was one of the most helpful things for my wife and I when we started dating in terms of how we learned how to understand each other. And I like it because it's a lot more flexible than like the Myers-Briggs. There's like 9 different types, but there's a lot of flexibility within each type. And there's a lot of explanation of how they relate to each other. that's also been really helpful in helping us build out our staff. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but I feel like a lot of times, this is probably more so in college, but even in pro ball, like the coaches will navigate towards players that are more like them sometimes. Or like I've seen a lot of times in college where coaches recruit themselves as players. So that book has also helped us be really conscious of like, you mentioned how like, hey, who are we bringing in? How do they align with the mission, vision, and values? But then also, how does their personality like fit in with our room? Like I don't want to hire anybody that has the same personality as me or my wife. We know that we have enough issues on our own. We need someone to help fill in the gaps. So that's been a really helpful one there. I had mentioned that Rants of a Strength and Conditioning Madman book earlier. That was just a good read to just have like know that somebody else has been in the field and has seen a lot of nonsense that you've probably thought about too. And just it's a good like little empathy sometimes, like, okay, I'm not the only one who's had these thoughts and who's irritated by some situations. Lately I read Triphasic 2 at like the start of the year. If you've read Triphasic 1, it's a great read. By Cal Dietz. I think he's really kind of fine tuned that thing. It was also kind of fun. Like he wrote Triphasic 1 like 12 years ago, I think. And even in like I've implemented a lot of Triphasic for myself and athletes in the last 10 years. And I feel like I've had some of the same thoughts. Obviously, I didn't like perfect it as much as Cal did, but I'm like, oh yeah, like firing patterns an issue. Maybe I should reorder how I set up my lifts to kind of combat that. There's been a few things that came up there that's been fun. I'm currently trying to read straight through Super Training. It's very painful. But it's one of those that I've like read sections out of over the course of the last 10 years, but now I'm trying to like go through it. I'm just under halfway through it. That's been really good. Also, next on the list is Game Changer for me. That's another one that I kind of pieced out of, but I haven't read straight through, so I'm going to straight read that one. And then two books that we talked about earlier. Kind of one of the things we talked about is like doing hard things. So the book Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. Actually, out of everything I'm recommending, I'd probably recommend that one the most. About how to develop true mental toughness and resilience and understanding how failure is good in controlled environments that allow people to learn. That book is Steve Magnus has a lot of really good content that I think is super valuable for not just strength coaches, but anybody in the field that's close to athletics and just understanding like mental resiliency and how to like actually assess success and understand if success is what's actually causing it. Is it actually like the gritty workouts, or is it actually something else that's happening that you're not paying attention to? And then with that too, kind of a process oriented book that I read last fall, The Football Guy in Me. The Score Takes Care of Itself by Bill Walsh. Obviously Bill Walsh is a stud. Talk about like the godfather of the NFL and like what it's turned into. Yeah, Bill Walsh is awesome. And any sort of wisdom you can gain from him is really profound. So, and there's been a lot of things just in terms of moral principles that I've pulled from there for business too. Podcasts. I'm on Elite Development Baseball Podcast, Cressy's podcast. I listen to that pretty regularly. Just Fly Performance Podcast. Those are always like I'm programming or I'm mowing the lawn or I'm working on a house project, like just roll it. They always get really good guests on there. And then kind of more on the youth sports side of things, a person that I've been following really consistently, and I'm really happy that they're having a larger voice, is Jeremy Frisch. He does a lot of things with youth development, and man, he's got a lot of good takes on things. I don't know if I think he's been on a couple of podcasts. I haven't listened to any podcasts, but I've been following his social media very closely for about a year now, and he's awesome. I look at all the stuff that he has those kids do, and I'm like, that's me and my buddies in the Sandlot. Like, that's what we did after school. That's what we did when we would meet up when our older brothers were playing baseball. We were making up some dumb game in the park and like run, like someone would swing the swing and be like run and like dive through it and try to roll. Like, I think kids need more.
Now in my training, to be honest, his videos pop up and I'll show my wife and I'm like, what would you do if I was doing this in the backyard and you came home? Like, she's like, I wouldn't expect anything less from you.
Yeah. Rolling, tumbling, crawling, grip strength, swinging, coordination, timing, spatial awareness, all amazing things.
Mhm.
Long term, that's what we want to hope to build our facility out to for our younger athletes. So yeah.
And then any seminars or anything? It doesn't seem like you have a lot of free time nowadays.
No, we are doing, so there's a couple of things that I watch yearly that are old, just to kind of stay up on top of like shoulder anatomy and stuff. But we are going up, my alma mater, Northwestern College in Iowa, is having a clinic this upcoming weekend actually, and Cal Dietz is presenting at it. So
Oh,
we're going,
nice.
yeah, we're going to that. So that's, and this year the thing I'm most excited about. And then I am hoping to do the Altus Masters mentorship this upcoming fall. So I'm enrolled in that right now. Hopefully everything comes together so I can stay in it and do it. So yeah.
We've been at it for quite a while, and I hate to take you away from the limited free time, but if you have time, I'd like to do a lightning round, and then I promise I will get you out of here.
Yeah, all good. We'll roll through it. Let's do it.
Okay, first one. What is the best part about life outside of professional baseball?
I get to do life alongside my wife every day. Like best friend, get to do best friend things all the time. And then also we get to be really invested in our local church. That's outside of our work. That is definitely our favorite part of living in Northwest Arkansas. We love our church family and just being able to do life with them. So yeah.
What do you miss the most about working in professional baseball?
Oof. I miss being in it with the players probably the most. Not just like the day-to-day, the fun, all that's great, but like most specifically, I think the most impactful moments I got to have and be a part of was like pitcher comes out of a game, their emotions are all over the place, whether they performed really well or they had a terrible day, and it's just you and them for their post-game recovery and just being able to like be there for them. That's probably the most impactful thing I missed. We have a couple of pro pitchers right now that we train in the off season, and I feel like I'm in it with them to some extent, but it's not the same when you're right there. So that's definitely what I missed the most.
Totally feel it. Would you change anything about your time in professional baseball?
I think early on, I took things probably a little bit too seriously. Mainly I came from the college world. So I think that I was very like strict by the book. These are care hours. We've got to roll. Things need to be structured. I think if I could have learned a little bit more like on the floor feel my first year, that would have been helpful. And then I wish I would have better utilize my off seasons. I still like did a good amount of coaching in the off season at various places, and I did take time for myself. I went hunting. I would spend time with family for Christmas and stuff. But I wish I would have done some things to be a little bit more well-rounded, fine-tuned as a baseball strength coach, whether that was working at an off-season facility specifically with baseball or even staying in the Phoenix area and learning more from other people in the area. Yeah. And then also I think being more bold in my convictions and how players were treated in certain instances. I think especially my last year with all the COVID stuff, that was not a fun place to be, I think, in any organization, just in kind of how some of the COVID rules were handled. And that's nothing about just in general, kind of how pro ball went about things. I wish I would have, like, I tried to do my best to let them know that I had their back, but I now that I'm out of it, it's like, well, I know I was going to be out anyway. I wish I would have been a little bit more bold to really stick up for them. Yeah. And I think a lot of that's been corrected too. I think there's been a lot of like more research has come out, and the players associations handling things better too. So that's been good.
What is on the horizon for you in the future that you're excited about?
So professionally as a business, adding staff. I'm really excited about that. I really have a passion for developing people and putting together a team. And I really think that like we're putting out a product that's great in serving kids well. So being able to grow that is like super exciting. And then personally, my wife and I are expecting in October. So
Congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah, thanks. We're going to be parents. She's 15 weeks along right now. So yeah, I'm pumped for that, man. It's going to be a blast. And also like being able to be here for it, if I was gone half the year, I honestly can't imagine. Not that we wouldn't find a way to make that work, but yeah, I'm pumped to be a dad, and I know she's pumped to be a mom. So it'll be fun.
Super excited for you, man. You guys will do really well. And you've had years of practice between professional baseball development and children in the game and the babysitting that is professional baseball sometimes, and then obviously now your business. So I have no doubt that you will raise a good child, and that child will be in a very loving family. So the last thing I need from you is just contact information. If the listeners want to get in touch with you, they want to know more about your business, they happen to be in Northwest Arkansas, they want a place to train, where can we go to find out more?
Yeah. So our email, our business website is resolute.nwa.com. The majority of our information for the business is right there. Our email is resolutenwa@gmail. My personal email is bloftis, so bloftis3338@gmail. And then our business phone number is 479-439-2373.
Awesome. Dude, it's been great to catch up with you. I'm so glad that things are going well for you in life. And you've kind of found a nice home for yourself outside of baseball. So best of luck for you. If I can do anything for you, please let me know. If you're ever in Arizona, you want to stop by, you're always welcome to. And it's been really good to catch up, man.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I know we went a little long, but it's always good to catch up with you too. And I'm really glad you're doing this. I think there's a lot of people in all corners of baseball that have done a lot of things that are have some pretty cool things to share. It's always great to listen to them.
Awesome. Appreciate it, man. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, everybody, that's going to conclude part 3 of this 3-part interview with Ben. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you missed part 1 and or part 2, I would highly recommend going back and listening to those as well. There was just a ton of really good information in this interview, and I'd hate for you to miss it. And again, this is for everybody, honestly. There's just so much good stuff, whether you're a strength coach still in professional baseball, you're in the private setting, you're trying to start your own business, or you're just trying to be a better person. I think Ben brought a lot to the table in this interview, and I'm really appreciative of him for doing that. 3 things that I took from Ben in this episode. When given the chance, you should hire others who will fill the gaps of what you are lacking, and not just others who are similar to you. Building meaningful relationships with others will take you much further than networking alone will. And if you want to be successful in this field, you have to be really invested in other people. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.